we're here today. We were going to be here today, but you might not know that, but passage of Proposition A in St. Louis County, which is eventually going to trigger a 1/4-cent sales tax here in St. Louis City, enabled us to have the funds, which we'll begin receiving sometime this fall, to begin the process of restoring transit service. So what are we going to do with those funds from Proposition A? We've been saying, we've had a lot of meetings over the last year, we've been saying all along, service restoration is our highest priority, and it is. We're going to begin to incrementally address the needs of the system. We can't flip the switch and bring all of the service back overnight. It takes a lot of time to get that done, and I'm going to tell you why. We're also not going to bring it back just as it was. We've changed some of the routes, the way their patterns work. We've changed some of the frequency. We're splitting up some of our bigger routes in the latter phases of the service restoration. So you're going to see things that are different. We want to get your feedback on those proposals. So one of the first things that we're going to do June 28th is improve service frequency. I'll talk a little bit about that. That's going to be the smallest restoration phase, June 28th. We're also going to put routes back, so that we call that geographic coverage. In other words, putting service back where it doesn't exist right now. And that also comes with call ride service, and we're going to redesign some of our routes. So what does it take to bring service back? The first thing it takes to operate transit service, not surprisingly, is vehicles. We do not have all of the vehicles that we had in March of 2009 to put service back on the street. We had to retire a significant amount of our fleet. St. Clair County Transit expanded their bus service in November of 2009. So they actually consumed, I think, 17 of our vehicles. So today we've got 50 vehicles in our fleet that are sitting over there. Right now the mechanics are getting them ready to put service back. So the restoration that I'm going to show you today is using those 50 vehicles. The other thing we need is people, staff, to drive those buses and work on those buses as mechanics. We laid off over 460 people when we cut service in March of 2009. We brought back a lot of them, thankfully, in August of 2009 with that restoration, but since that time a lot of people have retired, and thankfully some of those bus operators that were laid off have found employment in the year since their layoff. So we've got to hire all new people. We began the process of recruiting operators leading up to April 6th. We had people lined up. They had begun their clearance process, which includes physicals and drug tests and security background. So on the morning of April 7th, we started calling those people and saying, you have a job with Metro. Here you go through this process. And they actually started training last week. So we have operators training right now. And as soon as that class graduates their training, those are going to be the new operators that are out on the street on June 20th. That's ultimately going to be about 120 new operators, by the way, and I don't have the final count on the number of mechanics we're bringing. So this is a big operation. It's a good thing for the community and a good thing for our customers. So what are we going to do? We're going to structure the system in a different way that helps us provide service to as many markets as possible, high levels of service. We're going to address the problems with frequency and coverage, but we're also going to try and build new markets or rebuild markets where we lost service so that we can create opportunities for future growth in system ridership. And finally, the restoration is going to be implemented across, we think at this time, at least 3 phases. We got to implement it in phases because we got to wait for staff and vehicles to become available. That first phase is the first class of operators. We think we're going to have a big second phase of restoration that's going to be either August 30 or September 6th. We're trying to get that in before Labor Day, and right now we're on track to meet that schedule. So that's going to be classes 2 and 3 of our new bus operators and our new mechanics. We have a third phase of service restoration scheduled right now for November the 29th. When you go out on the boards in the hallway and look at the details, there aren't a lot of routes listed for November 29th. That right now is the most fluid phase. So we've got a little June 28th restoration, that's the most fixed because we've got to get scheduling that service next week. But November, that's the most open-ended. That's the phase we've got the most leeway. And we've got some pretty big wiggle room in the middle phase, too. So the first thing we're going to do, is this doesn't seem as glamorous as bringing service back, but we need to mention it. The first thing Proposition A allows us to do is to sustain service. And that's a really critical point. Leading up to Proposition A, we prepared 2 draft plans. This one for service restoration and another one for service reduction if things didn't go well. We are so pleased that we were able to shelve those plans and focus on service restoration. But had it not been, we would have lost frequency and service on almost all of our routes and a number of routes would have been eliminated entirely from the system. And again, this is just the draft plan, but I mention this because we need to understand where a pretty sizable chunk of the proceeds of Proposition A are going, and that's to keep the service we've got today. Because those state funds that we received to restore service at $12 million, turns out now it's going to be $8 million, but we're working through that. We would have had to eliminate that service in early summer. So here's the service restoration plan. Again, I'm just going to go over the high level of the routes that are included, but then we're going to break away and we'll have all of the planning staff available to talk with you and answer questions. Sir, did you have a question?
Yeah, you know, you was talking about all the other routes. Let me ask you something. You cut all them other, you cut them routes out. The Delmar, you got them all twisted up. The Sierra and all that. Why are you not putting them back? The lead going all the different ways. You lose a lot right there.
Yeah.
Then them people walking a mile. I ride that bus every day. You don't talk to people that don't ride the buses. What about the people that do ride them buses every day?
That's why we're here.
No, you said why you're here. I'm just being frank. You said why you're here. Y'all say one thing, but you don't keep your word about nothing. That is because the routes, the lead, all them routes. The Delmar was picking up a lot of people before you cut the buses out.
All of the routes.
I'm talking about
every last one.
The Delmar bus.
Yeah.
Oh, but why can't I finish, sir?
So, well,
He asked me,
we're
can I finish?
gonna have a lot of time for question and
But
answer.
I'm talking about why he gonna cut me off from what I had to say though.
I want to talk with you about specific routes, but it would be probably more helpful if we could talk one-on-one.
Well, that's when you asked me what I had to say, so why couldn't I finish?
Well, you've got your hand up for a while, so I don't want to leave you hanging.
Okay, I was trying to say, but he cut me off.
We're here to talk about restoration. Remember a few things. It's going to be incremental. It's going to take time. Service is going to come back. Might not look exactly as it did before. Some of the routes changed the routing. Some of them are getting put back.
The people in the city got a whole mile of walk. I don't care when he get through talking, cutting me off.
A lot of the routes lost frequency, and like I said, that's our first step, is trying to bring back that frequency. So I'm not saying, we're taking your questions and comments, and I can't tell you that we're going to be able to do all of that, because the reality is we've had far more requests for service than we actually have the money to provide. So we're going to do as much as we can. We're going to do as much as we can with the resources available.
Excuse me, how long will this be, since you said we have a lot of time?
1:30.
Oh, so you think that's a lot of time? Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, right.
Wait a minute. Let her present everything. If you have questions and you've got statements, this is not a place to make the statements on the whole group. This is a forum for her to go through this, get it over with, and then we will go one-on-one and listen to you. This is not a statement place.
Well, okay.
No, let her finish, please.
We don't want one-on-one, we want a group. We want to hear what everybody's going through as a group, not one-on-one. That's
Okay,
not
well, let me finish, and then if you
Let her
want to
finish.
stay, we'll stay. And if you want to go out in the hall and talk with one of the planning staff at any of the stations
It
and
would be
get your
best for
comments,
everybody
we can
collectively
do
to
that.
voice what they're going through.
Well,
Instead of being
Well,
one-on-one, unity is
We need
best.
to hear it. Jessica, may I add this, Golden, because we've talked. Her presentation is a small portion of our time here. Also, after the presentation, if 1:30 does not meet your needs, we are all very accessible.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you. My concern, Jessica's concern, is that some of us are very comfortable speaking out and making a public comment. Others want the one-on-one. So let her do her presentation,
And some of us
because
are
this
on-
tells you your comment, she may address it. Okay, so some of us have limited time. If you allow her to do that, I promise you, we will be here. We are available every day of the week to meet with you after this time, okay? But if you don't let her get through the presentation, then some of you will leave not knowing what the first phase of our plan is. And you will leave not knowing how that will affect